trouble, 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 trouble.
What's going on, everybody? Bill Mack here with another edition of Pro Wrestling Unleashed. Glad you folks could join me for this edition as we give you the results from the GFW Impact for August 24, 2017. Glad you folks could join me for another video here. And like I said, I'm here to give you the results. So let's just jump right on into the results. The show opens up showing what happened last week between the scuffle between the America's Top team, which is Bobby Lashley's mixed martial arts team, and GFW. Remember, there's been some conflict the last couple weeks because they're wanting Bobby to choose either choose mixed martial arts or professional wrestling. They don't want him to do both of them. So this kind of starts out what happens, and we see the referee get choked out last week. Well, it starts again this week, and we see a lot of going back and forth between Jarrett and Dan Lambert, which is the head of the America's Top team. So then we see more of it, just yelling back and forth this week. And Jarrett calls for Bobby Lashley, which Lashley ends up walking off with, the America's Top team. First matchup we have tonight is basically OVE taking on, basically it's a jobber team called the Heat Seekers. And it was basically a debut match for them. So we, well, not debut match, but we know when you have a new team like that, you're going to have somebody basically to show all to debut and have a good debut. So thought that was pretty good. Then we show backstage with Eli Drake talking to Jim Cornette in his office, and he doesn't like having to go in first. So then he tries to suck up to Jim Cornette, and Jim Cornette says, "Look, I'll make a deal with you if you just leave me alone." So Drake says, "Okay." Well, then Drake ends up going second instead of first. So really, there's not much of a break, but I think that's kind of funny that Jim Cornette would say that. But so, and tonight when we have the Gauntlet for the gold, it's going to be first. We'll see he'll be second instead of first. So we'll see. It's interesting to see who's going to be first. So then we see the beautiful Taryn Terrell make her appearance back, and she comes out, and Borash is asking her, "Why are you, what's going on? Why are you back? What's your intentions?" And she said she's there to basically help Gail Kim to retire, and she goes on about how she was there during her Hall of Fame induction, and Gail didn't make no time to call her or thank her or nothing, and so she's gonna come back, and she's leaving the Knockouts division in ruins, as she calls it. So she's coming back, and Gail's ruined her friendship. So then this prompts Gail to come out. Poor old Borash gets in the middle, tries to hold Gail back. Gail gets around him, chases Taryn Terrell out of the ring. So looks like we're going to see a Taryn Terrell Gail Kim feud. So I'm not at all displeased with that, because it's always great seeing Taryn Terrell in Impact anyway. So then we have a segment in the back where Jim Cornette is talking to Lashley and Dan Lambert and America's Top team. They come into his office, and he's telling them basically that Bobby's going to make a decision soon enough, and he's going to make a decision on whether he's going to stay in pro wrestling or he's going to do MMA, because there has been an outside talk about Bobby Lashley potentially going back to do his MMA, and Bobby's been successfully doing both. I don't see a problem why he don't do both if he's not having a problem, because he still, does a great job. But that's what they want to do, solely focus on either one or the other. So he gets upset because he thinks he should be the champion and all this stuff, and then Jim Cornette tells him that pretty soon he's going to make a change, and it's over with, to leave his office. And Bobby said nothing is over with. So this just kind of remains to be seen on what happens down the line with this. We see basically up next we have Grotto. I always call him Grotto, so Grotto. Grotto is kind of giving his farewell because little fella's tried so hard to keep himself in the country, but everything's kind of fell apart. He's asked the Knockouts, and the only one he did, Congo Khan, came out there, and she just never did it. But then he's telling us goodbyes. He's thanking everybody. And just as he's about to leave, Laura Van Ness's music comes on. But then she looks so beautiful, like the normal, if you can believe it, Laura Van Ness. Not the hot mess as she has been for the past few months, but she's back to her normal self again. She looks great. And she comes out and she says that Grotto has done a change to her, and she's no longer like she was, and she thanks him, and that she ends up getting on her knee, pops the question, and Grotto accepts. Of course, they're both happy. Congo Kong's music hits. He's coming out. I'm thinking, oh, well, he's not going to be happy about this. But then Maobari Shira, I guess that's how you pronounce his name. Shira, I'll just call him Shira. Shira comes out and stands in the middle of the ramp. Congo Kong sees him and he just kind of backs away. So Shira's not going to allow Congo Kong to come out there and break this up. So this looks like this could be a Shira and Congo Kong feud coming up. So we see Jim Cornette, he's talking to Eddie Edwards in the back, and he's telling Eddie about the first time that he met him and how he was going to go out and wrestle with a bone basically almost sticking out of his arm, I think. And he was just amazed at the potential and toughness that Eddie shows. And he said, if it was he says, I know that you are getting, you're going to have to go in and you've got a crappy pick for the Gauntlet. But you know what? Myself and Anthem would be proud if you were the global champion. So kind of see something foreshadowing here potentially, later on in the match, later on in the night for this matchup. So we see LAX in the clubhouse, and remember that Conan's trying to get everybody's situation. He's talking about homicide and things he's doing, everybody's doing, and he looks around to Low Key and he tells Low Key, he says, one thing this company hates is when Latinos get in power, so we want you to beat everyone in this gauntlet basically tonight and win the global championship. So Low Key hears this, he gets up and he leaves, and then the rest of LX are wanting to shoot dice. So he's got his mission, and that's what he's going to set out to do, is try to bring that global championship to LAX. So then we have an interview in the back between Jim Cornette and Karen Jarrett, and they're basically asking questions about why Bruce was fired and what he was saying and the direction in which they were going. What they think about, and ask Karen about Gail Kim's return, and Karen's pleased to see her back in this last final run this year. And then asked her about Taryn Terrell, and she said, well, they had a feud, and sometimes you have to take the bad with the good. So that was basically that little segment. So last but not least, folks, we have the 20-man gauntlet for the gold. Remember, it's going to be the first two guys facing each other, and every 2 minutes another contender will be in until the 20th man is in, and then the final two can only win by pin or submission. So anything over the top, they're eliminated till the final two, and it's a pin or submission. So I'm giving you the order in which they came in and were eliminated in that order, so you'll know basically how it went. So we have Eddie Edwards was the surprise. He was number one. And then we have Eli Drake. So these two went at it. So then Mario Baccarat, he came in. Eddie Kingston came in. Braxton Sutter came in. Richard Justice, which if all you remember Richard Justice as the wrestler dude that was on the always training the standby wrestler, he came in. EC3 came in. So then when EC3 comes in, we see he eliminates Richard Justice. So Richard Justice goes out. So then we see basically, and get this list right for you folks, I don't want to get anything wrong. Congo Kong comes in, and then Mario Baccarat, he goes out. Eddie Kingston goes out. Suicide comes in, then Shira comes in. Congo Kong ends up getting out after going over the ropes. Chris Adonis ends, then Shira gets thrown over the top. Phantasma enters, and then the surprise entrance of this gauntlet that Jim Cornette said that would be Johnny Impact, which we all know is John Morrison, Johnny Mundo from Lucha and WWE. He makes his appearance. Had a pretty good matchup tonight. Then Chris Adonis goes out. Then we see Suicide go out. Garza Jr., he comes in. Braxton Sutter ends up going out. Fallah Bahh, remember him? Big guy. He comes in. KM comes in. Ishimori comes in. Lashley enters. Then we see KM go out. Bala go out, Ishimori goes out, Moose comes in, Garza Jr. ends up going out, Loki ends up being number 20, Phantasma goes out, followed by EC3. Loki ends up out, and we come back for a commercial. Don't know how that happened, but when he come back from a commercial, Loki was out because you seen him fussing with the guys on the outside. So there were 5 left. So when we had Lashley goes out, followed by Moose, and then Johnny Impact goes out. And I don't know how that worked because I thought he was out, but then it's down to Eddie Edwards and Eli Drake, the final 2. So the first 2 that started ended up being the last 2 to finish, which I thought was odd, but fitting because that's something you don't see every day, a number 1 and a number 2 ending up being the last 2. It typically doesn't happen. I actually thought Loki was going to be near one of the final ones being in there, but he wasn't one of even the final 5 left in there. So then Eddie ends up hitting his move and pinning Eddie Edwards, and I'll have to get the name of the move. I'm not really familiar with all these moves yet. So Eddie Edwards ends up getting pinned, and we see Eli Drake win the global GFW Global Championship. I'm wanting to call it the Global Championship because we see some of them are not quite clear on these names. I've heard some call it the Global Champion, the others call it the World Heavyweight Champion. So it still remains to be seen because the women's title says Women's Champion, but they call him the Knockouts Champion. So that still remains to be seen. But I'm going to just say the GFW Global Championship since it's Global Force. So he wins, he poses. Then we see on the outside, which I thought was really bad, was another problem between America's Top Team and more officials from GFW because then Scott D'Amore come out there. He ends up getting shoved down. The referees and everything, and then you see Bobby trying to call America's Top Team and usher them out. Scott D'Amore was trying to get the officials and him to push them out. So I thought it ruined Eli Drake. I like Eli Drake. I'd been pushing for Eli Drake, and I think I may have mentioned in one of my videos that he'd be one that I would like to see get the title because he's a good talker and he's been in the company for a while. He deserves it. So I'm glad that he got it. I just hate that segment really ruined it. So for me, that was a bad situation. But anyways, we'll see what happens next week and what goes down with this. But I'm glad to see Eli Drake win it. Good heel or face. He needed to get it once sooner or later. It's one of their own guys. It was about time for him to get it. I know years ago he won the King of the Mountain title, but that's not really the world title, or the global title. So glad to see him win. But I hope you've enjoyed the video. I'm not trying to keep it too long, but that 20-man gauntlet took a little while. But I hope you enjoyed it. If you do, give me a thumbs up, upvote if you're on VidMe. Like and subscribe to me if you're on Facebook. Follow me. I appreciate all of it, and I'll continue making more videos for you. So, and until next time, this is Bill Mack saying, take it easy. Yeah.